Alright, we're going to do a mid-July update of the permaculture design in my yard. And the yard dimensions are approximately, I think, 66 feet by 333 feet, close to that. And it's divided up into different segments or zones, as we would say in the permaculture world. Up by the house we have a kitchen garden. And between the kitchen garden and where we are here is a green space of green grass and fruit trees. Kind of a assembly area or area to lounge around in with the shorter grasses. And then here we have the start of the main crop garden, and this is what the video is going to be. And it's just for purposes of limiting it, because this is go on for hours if I went into details of all this stuff. So we're going to be dealing with the main crop garden and the food forest area. And I have an area of hugelkultur, and I'm letting that grow wild, preparing it for trees in the future. So we'll get into this, and the details are quite amazing in terms of how everything is beginning to produce. Oh, right away, right here in the future, right here. Let's deal with this right here first. So I'll be editing some of this stuff out, right? So right here in the beginning, I'm going to show you this. This is a little 55-gallon barrel that I cut in half. And I'm utilizing the upper half as well. But this is wild rice. This is one of Mollison's ideas, that wild rice, if you really take care of it, it could grow you as much as a half a pound of rice on one stalk. So we're going to find that out. First of all, we got to find out if I have the ability to grow it. That might take a little experimenting to see what it likes. And what it is right now is it's peat that I got out of the swamp, so it's got a high acid, and I'm keeping it with water. This is a barrel and full of water. The last time it rained, we actually had about 3 or 4 inches of water over the top of the soil that you can see in the pots, and it's been evaporating since. Now, I've had wild rice grow on my wildland up north in a spot where there was no water, and it had a really nice crop. So I'm just going to let this evaporate down and, just make sure that it's very wet. If it doesn't have any water in it. So that's our beginning of the main crop area. And here we have a little strip here in between our main access path. And I'm preparing it now to be fertile soil for kiwi plants. I want to be growing kiwis in over this trellis that is over the main access path here. And I'm preparing it right now with buckwheat, and it's just now starting to flower, so it's time to cut it, and I'll incorporate it into the soil. And I've got some mustard that I'm going to plant in here for some control of nematodes. Other than the buckwheat and the kiwis, I am growing ground cherries in here. The ground cherries are having to grow pretty tall to compete, which I kind of like that, get them off the ground. You can see it's got some cherries coming on them. Now here's the first main crop garden. This one has been in existence since the 1980s, off and on. So in the first row we have a companion planting of leeks and carrots, and I did this last year. It was a great success, and it's really kicking off now. The leeks I planted very densely together, and then the carrots are kind of in little circles staggered in the bed, and I'm beginning to thin out the leeks a little bit now, and they're excellent, and they grew very quickly. Matter of fact, I'll take one out right now and I'll show it to you here. I'm taking them out, the ones that are close to the carrots. Here's a leek. This is mid-July. Think what they're going to look like in October. Then the next bed, I have a combination of tomatoes. I have a row of potato onions that are getting ready to be harvested. That would be on the north side of tomatoes. I've got some parsnips on the south side. And then as an experiment, this end cap here I have potatoes growing with the tomatoes, which is actually supposed to be in conflict with one another. I just want to see if we get a potato harvest or if we get a tomato harvest, even though they're growing together. And there's some dill to help out the tomato. There's cilantro. And I planted a basil plant in here, but it apparently has died. So it didn't like it. And I've got one kohlrabi here, which is really weak. I'm probably going to be pulling that out here pretty soon. The next bed, I think we'll bring the camera in here. Let's bring the camera in closer. Oops. Camera's falling apart. Everything I've got is falling apart. I'm using it all too much. So here the next bed is of the first main crop garden. This is the third bed. It has a companion planting of the main article is elephant garlic. And then I have carrots in the background, carrots around the corner, and then I have celeriac, and I have celery. And these are all companion plants. And then there's a little patch here of barley that hasn't seeded yet. And you're going to see some here in one of the main crop gardens where it's really seeded out. This is an area here that gets less sunlight. Right now it's getting like 9:30, so we're finally getting sun in this area at 9:30 in the morning. Whereas the other area where it's headed out, it gets sunlight almost all day. I have a pear tree here. I don't think I've ever talked about this pear tree. This is a Bartlett pear rootstock, and I grafted on a branch of my big old pear tree that's just a prolific producer of pears, and I'm espaliering it. I may elect to dig it out of here yet and put it back on the fence. I don't know. We'll see what I do. Alright, this is the fourth bed in this first main crop garden, and this is probably the widest bed of all. And this bed, along with the very short bed that's abutted against the fence, have the same theme here. And that is a Three Sisters type planting with an added component to it. And the Three Sisters, what they normally plant together, and this is a very ancient indigenous method of planting crops. I think it originated out of the southwestern area of the United States. But we have corn, and we have climbing beans, that the beans climb up the corn, and then we have squash. And the idea is that the corn is the main crop, and the beans will provide a crop and provide nitrogen for the corn, and then the squash obviously provide a nice crop, and then it provides shade on the ground to reduce evaporation. And they all grow very well together. So the added component to this is yacon. So now we have an above ground crop with the corn and the beans. We have a ground level crop with the squash, and then we're going to have a below ground, a root crop with the yacon. And the yacon is a member of the sunflower seed family, or the sunflower family. And sunflower actually was a component of the Three Sisters in place of corn. So that all works together. And we're doing this great and grand experiment here now with the yacon. I don't think that's ever been done, ever. Well, I'm sure somebody's tried it, but not that I've ever aware of anyway. And then I've got on the end cap, I have a potato plant and a comfrey plant growing. So we'll see if there's any differences, because there's a potato and a comfrey, and the other side I actually have a tomato. So, and then there's just the four in the center. And the beans, by the way, came from Catalina. They're butter beans. So I'm really interested to see what those turn out to be like. So we'll monitor that. Oh, and there's one other thing. On the end cap, I also have some fenugreek growing, which is a nitrogen fixer, as well as the beans. There's a lot going on here. Oh, and I might as well, since there's a lot going on, I might as well keep going. On the fence between the two main crop gardens here, we have grapes. These are Reliance grapes and thornless blackberries. We have thornless blackberries behind me and a grape. I'm going to allow that grapevine to grow all the way down that trellis. And on the other side, we have a grand trellis of kiwis, all in this one little area here. Okay. Oops. Can't forget I'm trying to train this blackberry to go up and around. That'll look kind of neat. There's actually a couple of them I'm going to train to go over the top of this thing. But this is the second main crop garden, and it's directly connected to the first main crop garden, except for there's a trellis or a fencing between the two. So that's why I designate this as a separate, even though it's part of a larger complex here of fencing. And in here I've got a number of things planted. Basically, the main crop in here is potatoes. We have purple Peruvian, and we have mountain rose. That's what's growing in here. And in amongst them I've got bean plants. I got black beans growing into these potatoes here, and the beans are living in the shade. They haven't set a flower yet or a blossom yet, but they're working on it. And these beans can grow this high, and they're working into this. So the idea is when the potatoes are dying back, that's when the beans are taking over. And of course the beans are going to fix nitrogen, so it's going to fix the nutrient for next year's crop. We're going to have potatoes and beans in the same bed here. And then we have a parsnip in the beginning on the end cap to see how that grows. The second bed not only has potatoes and beans, it also has peas. So I've already been taking peas out of here and eating them. And the peas are just now, I actually had two types of peas in here. One is a pea that was very early. They call it, I don't know, mini pea or something. And I've already harvested those. Those are finished. And now another type of pea is coming in, a normal type of pea. I think it's called Cherokee. And they're just now starting to form pods. So now I'm going to get another pea crop. And after that pea crop is done, then the beans that I have planted in here are going to be taken over. So we got peas, beans, potatoes, and then on the end here, I got some corn from corn seed from somebody who watches my videos, and I planted a couple corn stalks in here, a couple corn seeds. And they're starting up. Actually, I only see one. If there's only one, we're not going to get any corn unless I hand pollinate it. Oh, here's another one. Oh yeah, we got more. This one here has got some problems with the weeds here, so I'm going to clear it out a little bit. Here's another one. So we're good. I got tansy in here, keep the flies away from the grapes. And again, we got the same row here that I described in the first main crop garden. This is the dividing area between the first and the second, and it's Reliance grapes and blackberries. And the blackberries are going to be just a terrific crop this year. And behind we have a couple tomato plants, and then there directly behind them are asparagus, and I've got some climbing peas growing in the asparagus. There's a gooseberry plant. We have some male meter kiwis growing up to grow up into this part of the trellis. On the other side we got female kiwis. Those are annas. Behind we have kiwis and mulberries and blackberries all planted together. More tansy. Oh, and service berries. There's service berries on that side along with the kiwis. The kiwis I'm growing up some very long poles as their trellis. And I've got some wild roses in here. More asparagus in the front. Some black raspberries. I thought I got them all out of here, but there's another black raspberry growing here. Peas. Peonies. Man, there's just a lot going on. I couldn't cover all of this in one video, not even close. Here we are, only two main crop gardens, and look at all the time we got into it already. So this one has really gone wild. I'll probably have to get you inside of here and get you a little more of a close-up here to get you to appreciate what's happening, which is a lot. This is our third main crop garden. We'll go after this wildest section first here. I'm allowing the milkweed to grow. And this is its 3rd year of really no attention to it, letting it just spread out. And along that fence line there, I've got some climbing peas in there that made it. I got a couple gooseberries here in the front. Way in the back there's a grapevine that's growing up over the top. In amongst these milkweed we have yacon growing. And I've had to trim the milkweed back a little bit from the front because the yacon actually started to suffer not having enough sun. And I got some yacon in the milkweed in the back. We're going to see what it is. If you look really carefully, you can see some corn stalks growing up in the milkweed. And those corn stalks were planted at the same time they were over here, and those are twice the height. So what those milkweeds are doing, you know, competition for sunlight is probably part of it, but maybe there's some companion plant connection there between corn and milkweed. I know I grew tomatoes in here 2 years ago with the milkweed, and the tomatoes were the best crop of tomatoes I ever had. So this milkweed might have some really special qualities to it. Along with the milkweed and the corn and the yacon here, I've had potato onions growing, and they're going to seed. I'm letting them go to seed, but there's a whole big bed of potato onions in there to harvest sometime in the future after all this is kind of knocked down. And there's some parsnips I'm allowing to go to seed, basically for the pollinators. Cilantro in the very front here. Let's take this camera off here. In the very front here, kind of in the shade, we have some Siberian peaches growing. And there's some climbing beans I put in here. And there's some hybrid chestnuts in here. And I guess we got a little weeds coming up in here. We're going to take those out of there. We don't want them to get above the chestnut leaves. And on this side we have another theme of corn, beans, and squash and yacon. That's actually what this row was meant to be too, with the added component of onions, but okay, well, there's some beans there. There's a bean coming up right there. I don't know what's growing up way in the milkweed. We're going to have to wait until it all dies back before we investigate that. Then in here we have the yacons and the beans, and then some corn. This corn is a little more sparsely planted than the other. This is more of a yacon dominated Four Sisters method here than the first main crop garden. Again, this is the 3rd main crop garden. Then we got a lineup of borage. I got a borage plant along my path I've been harvesting and eating flower buds off of, and it's just, the more I pick off of it, the more that it produces. So this is what I've been picking off right here before it goes to flower. Once it goes to flower, I want the pollinators to have it. So I've been just eating this straight up right off the plant. Then here I've already harvested radishes out of here, and I've been eating some tayberries. These aren't ripe yet. And I've been eating some peas. We have climbing peas in here. Oh yeah, you got to look at this. I noticed this yesterday. There must be a mouse or something climbing up this and eating the peas out of the pods. I've never seen that before. So I was going to put a mouse trap in here yesterday and I forgot. But I was eating the peas off of here when I noticed it last night. Ain't that wild? And above the peas is grapes. These are Cannabis. And it's just going to be a great crop as long as, you know, it might get moldy here because there's not a lot of airflow here, but so far I see no hint of any mold anywhere, and it's just loaded with grapes. There's a gooseberry plant hidden in here. It actually had some gooseberries on it. See, look at that. So that's growing in here underneath the grapevine. Peonies, my grandma peonies. This is a butternut squash here. Big old leaves. Climbing beans. Then I planted some later. This is the 1st of July corn I planted. So this came from a lady in Upper Michigan, Dawn Anderson. Supposed to be a corn that has a lot of carotene in it, I think. And then here I got a very small patch of barley. You can see it seeding out.
I got that barley from Ben. He's a permaculture designer. I actually saved him because where he had it, he got kicked out of that house and he couldn't get at it. And he had given me some seed, and I had some seed left after I planted it. And he asked if I had any left, he'd like to have it. So I shipped him some of his own seed back. Oops, I just pulled that out. When you're pulling weeds, you got to be so careful. There's a nice big lovage plant. I've been eating this right off of the plant too. I look for a new leaves. Really intense celery flavor. Okay, that's our third main crop garden. So here's my fourth main crop garden. This is a brand new garden that I began to form up last fall. And I've got 4 beds in here. The first bed is kohlrabi and beans. It's the first time I planted those two together. And it originally was really dominated by the kohlrabi. But it's been such a wet June that the kohlrabi started to split. So I thinned them out as they split. And now it's more of a bean dominated first half of the bed. There's only 2 kohlrabis. And then we have the yellow beans. And then this is what I originally wanted the whole bed to be like. So we've got a representation of it. It's dominated by the kohlrabi and the big leaves. And then the beans are kind of just working the edges, working the middle. You know, fighting to get up to get some sunlight. And the idea was, you know, the kohlrabi is going to get its start, and then the beans are going to kind of fill in the margins, and then the beans were going to provide some nitrogen for the kohlrabi at the end, and then we're going to be having a bean crop as we're waiting for the kohlrabi to grow, and then we'll harvest the kohlrabi sometime in late fall. And I also have some climbing peas on the fence that's giving us a crop in the meantime. On the end cap we have a gooseberry. We have raspberries, yellow raspberries growing along with the climbing peas on the fence line. In the back part of the fence here we have climbing peas, and we're espaliering apple trees. And one of the apple trees is a pristine, it's actually fruiting. The second bed here, the outer or the farther away half, you can't really see it as well, as I've already began to harvest French shallots, and I planted parsnip seeds in with the French shallots, and they're just starting to take over now. So I'm going to be harvesting the French shallots, and now it's going to be a bed of parsnips, except for an area where the ants were. I really like ants. They're good pest control, but when they get into the garden, they kill whatever their mound is about. So I don't want them in the garden proper. I like them to be on the outskirts, in the food forest. So I had to dig them out. In the center of this bed, I actually had a little pathway so that I could get into the other beds here, but I got a late edition seed, a barley from permaculture guy. His name is Ben Van de Dries. I'm not even sure how to pronounce his last name, but he's on Facebook. But I visited with him last winter at his house, and he gave me this seed. You should grow it out. The big monster seeds of barley. And this thing's, we're mid-July, and this is, geez, almost fully headed out already. So it grew very fast. And in amongst these 2 little patches of barley, I have fenugreek growing. This little patch has got a dense planting of a lot of barley plants in with the fenugreek, and then the other planting is a less dense planting of fenugreek and more barley. So this is less barley, more fenugreek. That's more barley, less fenugreek. And then I've got the odd cabbage and kohlrabi in here with it. Here's a big pigweed. This is a really good compost plant. It's really succulent. So I'll make sure that gets into the compost, or the worm mound over there. And then these are potato onions. Some of them I snipped the seed heads off, and some of them I'm allowing to go to seed. I've been trying to plant these seeds and get them to sprout, but I haven't had any success yet. And I've got an odd parsnip in here. And then on the ends here I have pots with potatoes in it. Now, I've had some potato harvests in the past that were pretty weak, and I think it's because of voles eating the potatoes. So now I'm protecting them in pots and seeing, we're going to compare these pot grown potatoes with our roll grown potatoes to see if there's a difference there. Now I don't have a path to get between them, I gotta get up over. We have the barley here, and then I've got these are potato onions. And with the potato onions I have some beets growing, sugar beets. And I've already harvested radishes out of here, spring radishes. So I've got the radishes already. I'm about to harvest the potato onions, and then I'm going to have some beets. And when I harvest the potato onions, I'm going to be planting fall radishes along with it. Along the wooden fence there I have sweet potatoes growing in a mound and also in a pot. And they're both together, and we're going to see if there's any difference between the two. In the pot is just my compost. That's all it is. There's an achira vine. There's a little grouping of stinging nettle. On this side we have soft neck garlic. This is Polish red. And you're not supposed to grow peas with garlic, but I did it anyways. These are climbing peas, and we're going to be having a pea crop. And I actually had some small peas in with the garlic, and they grew pretty well. I already harvested that. It's getting close. Alright, this is main crop garden number 5. And I got 5 rows in here. The first row on the fence line, we have black raspberries growing. And then this is hardneck garlic. This is what I call Michigan commercial grade. I got it from a farmer up in the UP of Michigan back, I don't remember, late 90s. That's got quite a history behind this garlic, just even on my property. And then in with the garlic, I've got cabbage, got some kohlrabi, got some peas that I've already harvested. In the corner here, I have a gooseberry that's got some berries on it. Directly behind me, we have a pear tree that I espaliered, and it's going to be giving us about a half dozen pears. This row here is a whole row of potato onions. These are onions that I planted in the spring versus the 4th main crop garden. Those onions I planted in the fall, so those are ahead. And with these potato onions, I've got a cabbage and a couple of kohlrabi. 1, 2, 3 kohlrabi with them. When I harvest the potato onions, I'm going to be planting in a fall crop of radishes as well as in the garlic. I just got some mustard seed in the mail, and I'm going to take this straw away from the beds. I'm going to plant that mustard seed in here, maybe even today, and get that mustard seed to spring up before I harvest the garlic and the onions. Then I'll pull it out, and then allow the mustard to grow, I don't know, 6 inches tall. Then I'll work that in. That's a nematode control, and then I'll plant my radishes in that. I do have nematode problems here for radishes, so we're going to experiment, see if that doesn't take care of it. I've got this morning glory growing all over the place, and I got to keep on it, keep pulling them out. I really don't like pulling them out, but on the positive side, they have deep roots, and they're bringing up all the nutrients from very deep down, nutrients and moisture up into the garden. If you find the root, you can really pull a lot of stuff out at once just by pulling down that root. But I don't want to be pulling weeds now. If I start, I won't stop and I won't finish this video. Okay. Now behind me I have currant, and I've got sticks coming up here. These are climbing beans, and I'll climb up in the front. I think these beans came from that Don Anderson in the UP. Alright, so these are the last 3 rows. This is the middle row, and this was primarily a kohlrabi row. And I had quite a few kohlrabi growing on here, and most of them split because of the wet May. And there's 3 of them still growing, and they're getting to be monsters. And in between the kohlrabi now I have bean plants growing. That's a pretty common theme here. I want to try beans and kohlrabi together. And then the next row we have beans and celeriac. And then the end row is kind of a mixture. I've had kohlrabi in it that split and I took out. Now I've got some beans here growing by themselves. There's a borage plant there. I planted some new kohlrabis in here, some brand new ones. They're trying to fight through the slugs. We'll see if they make it. There's an achira plant. There's gooseberries. Behind me there's another kiwi plant to grow into the cherry tree behind. We've got some thistles coming up. I probably should pull them because they can take over. More gooseberries. There's some sucker cherry tree plants growing here that I'm going to bring up north. Wait till I harvest the garden. Grapevines. Can't forget there's grapevines on both sides here. So I want this new main crop garden area to mimic the first one where there's grapevines on the fencing all the way around. And there's blackberries in here too. I got some climbing spinach. Catalina sent me that, and I've got it coming up here in the corner. And I got a little area of peas that I got from Don, and the birds started to use a piece of it for a dust bath, so I'm letting the birds have that because they need to rid themselves of the mites. So there's peas and there's a little area for the birds. And I gotta show you this. Let me take this. So many things to look at. I don't know what to show you all other than kind of the main themes. Here are the peas. You're supposed to be able to eat the tendrils here. Supposed to be really sweet. Actually, I haven't tried them yet. Now, this is where the birds are using the dust bath. So those peas are gone. We're gonna let them have it. These are the morning glory that coming up all over the place. I gotta keep on it or else they choke everything out. In the 80s, my wife planted some of this stuff here, and it's been here since. Don't plant morning glory. Unless, of course, you want nutrients to come up from deep. Nutrients and moisture. So that's one positive part of it. And maybe that's why I'm getting really good crops. I'm constantly pulling that out and adding. So these are, I want to show you this, potatoes in the pots. I mean, this is 3 feet tall at least. You see the pot under there? And then this side is just monsters. There's like 4 pots here. A couple of pots are the really big tree pots there. Black raspberry growing up. Stinging nettles in the corner. Alright, that is my main crop areas. I got 5 of them. That's a wrap. Now let's go back and I'll show you my experimental hazelnut planting. Actually, I got something to show you between the 5th main crop garden and the hazelnut planting. This is where I'm composting. This is my new area for composting. I built 2 compost piles here so far of the 8 that I've done here on this property. And I built the compost, and then I spread this compost out into beds. And I erected this fence here as a north microclimate type of a barrier, and I planted melons on it. We got something digging in here. I don't know what they're digging for, but they're digging something in here. But the melons have really taken off. They're really growing very well. That's big in here. I'll have to put the trail camera up. Then I've got squash on the end, which I've had to pull a squash plant out already because it was infected with, I think, a squash borer. I just pulled it out. I overplanted everything so I can afford to pull some stuff out. And then on this side, I got some old beehive boxes. I'm going to show you this. I'm using these beehive boxes as a way to build up the soil here a little bit. I'm using these beehive boxes that are kind of falling apart. I'm using it to hold the soil up here a little bit, make a raised bed. And I had a potato plant. A potato sprouted last winter, and I'm guessing in January. So I put it in a pot on a south window, and this thing had to compete with some other plants that were on the table there in front of the window, and it grew this long stem. It was 2.5, 3 feet long to get all the way over to the light, and it sprouted leaves there by the light. So I know the potatoes come out of the stem and not out of the root, so I took that stem and I curled it around in that beehive box. I filled the whole thing up with compost. We'll see how it does. And I planted some beans along with it. And those are companion plants. And then the second box I have what's called a balloon flower. It's got a really nice looking flower and in the second year, and you can harvest the root and eat it. And then the last one, I got a new addition to the property. And this is a potato mint. Or mint potato. It's a mint plant that'll grow a potato. Or a potato-like tuber anyway. But I don't know if it's going to get enough sun here. It doesn't get any sun till about noon, and then it's got about 8 hours of sun. But we'll see if that makes it in that spot. I'm kind of running out of places to put things. And then this is that other half of the barrel. The lower half I've got wild rice in. And this half, it's just open right to the bottom, and I planted sweet potatoes in it. And they're really growing very densely. I had to put a chicken wire around it because the rabbits were coming in and eating them. Then right behind me I've got 3 pots of potatoes. So I made use of this area where I'm composting. I'm not going to start my next compost pile until these melons are finished this fall. When they're finished, then I'm going to start a new one. Right behind the composting area, though, that fence, that's a fence that used to house bears at a zoo. It's made out of oak. I'm kind of dragging my feet getting that put up. So, and I'm not going to be in a rush to build this. You know, if it takes me 5 years, if it takes me a decade to get it all done. You know, I know what the design is. It's just a matter of assembling the pieces. I think I got a pretty good start. I can take a break once in a while. That fence is going to border this main crop, food forest, garden area on the south side. And once that's erected, then that'll be a larger area for composting, because I'm really pushing it in this area here where the melons are now. It's just barely big enough to be able to turn them. If I got a little more space, it'll be easier. So here you see we got a pretty good full grown, or not full grown, adolescent. So here we have kind of an adolescent American hazelnut growing. I bought this one on clearance from Fleet Farm in 2013 and planted it here. We actually got a couple. We got some nuts here growing. You can see the nuts right here. So there's a few more scattered in some of these older ones. But these are Americans. I've got these in this design to be basically the pollinators of what's planted in the center. So the center is entirely surrounded by Americans. And no matter which way the wind blows, I want pollen to be blowing into the center. And in the center I have growing what's called precocious hazelnuts. I got them from Okios. I planted them in 2014. So they're kind of slow to get going. But they're starting to grow. This year is obviously their best year. We have a couple of them that are starting to branch out pretty good already. Again, you can get a good view of this one that's growing the best. This is one of the best ones here. Right here. Here's another one right here. And here's some smaller ones in here. Now I'm planting in here, I've got onions, and these onions, something went wrong with them. I gotta show you this. I should probably ask Ben. But they had this last year, but it wasn't so bad. There's some type of a fungus got on these onions. Still growing the seeds. It still has a bulb. I've got this up north, these same plants, the same family, and they're just as clean as can be. And then down here I've got this, something happened to them. So I haven't researched it yet. It's probably something I can add to the soil, to something natural to slow that down. We'll see. So on this side we have the spring onions here, along with the precocious hazelnuts. And on this, and then by the way, I do have a couple of European hazelnuts in between the precocious and the Americans. And then on this row here, I'm going to be getting a nice crop of garlic. And underneath the garlic is these precocious hazelnuts. They're all growing very well. They're looking really nice. The hazelnuts that are. And I've got more Americans. I got Americans all the way around this whole square area. And then look at this thistle plant. It was about this big last year. Of course, they're biennials, right? It's grown into this monster, and I want to leave it grow because I want to harvest it for my compost this fall. So I don't know when this thing seeds out You know, I'm going to let it blossom because the bumblebees just love it. But I think after it blossoms, I'm going to clip all these heads off so it doesn't go to seed. I want the plant. Thistle plants accumulate a lot of minerals, you know, one of them is iron. That'd be good to addition to the compost pile. So now we're going to look more on the outside of this precocious planting. Our overstory, we're going to have a honey locust. And then I've got mint growing in here. And the mint will go away after a while. This area is so thickly planted with hazelnuts that this is going to be, everything growing under is going to disappear for lack of sunlight. And then on the corner here I have a Arkansas black and an Antonovka seedling. I'm going to actually graft them together, and I've got comfrey and rhubarb. There's a sea berry in here, a couple of sea berries. That's the corner, southeast corner. And then here we have the start of a swale. Actually, the camera's in the swale itself, and then I got a swale mound. And that swale mound has a lot of yarrow growing on it, bird's foot trefoil, some tansy, some lupus, more yarrow than anything right now. And the yarrow and the bird's foot are both blooming right now, so it's really a good source for the pollinators. And then on the mound I have apples, cherries, and peaches. Let's give you a look of this mound with all the yarrow on it. Right here, the yarrow. Yarrow is a biodynamic mineral accumulator. It's really a good addition to compost. So we allow that to grow all at once. There's some goldenrod mixed with it. The goldenrod I actually snap off, and then it grows more shoots, and then it doesn't get as high. It doesn't dominate over the rest of this in here. In here there's some small seedlings of service berries, but I see the rabbits been eating them. I don't know how well they're doing. I gotta try to find them. These are the apples. This is a cherry, sour cherries. That one came from Okios. Peaches. Another different type of cherry. That's a white cherry, and another Alberta peach that's growing very well. Oh, and then on the north side of the hazelnut planting, we have this gloriously tall Arkansas black apple tree, and I'm training a grapevine to grow up in it. This was originally sold. I remember buying this in the year 2000. I thought it was a columnar apple tree, but it's grown some really nice branches. You know, columnars generally you just have one and then the little bitty branches coming out, but I allowed it to grow that way, and it looks really nice. It's given me some nice crop of apples since 2000 already. Well, it started fruiting like 7 years old from 2000, so 2007 to now, it's like every other year we get a good crop, and this is a good crop year. I've highlighted this little spot here a few times. This is a little polyculture here. We've got some comfrey growing. On the other side of the comfrey we have a tomato plant. Tomato plants are good companion plants with fruit trees and grapevines. And behind the tomato plant is a rhubarb. Between this spot here and the tree are chives. We've got some mint, spearmint on one side. We have catmint on the back side. We have an elderberry bush growing up with this Honeycrisp apple tree. So here's the elderberry, here's the apple tree, here's Josta berries, and then I planted this little chestnut tree, and it didn't come up this spring, and I thought it was dead. Well, now I see there's little leaves coming out. There's a new shoot coming out of the roots. So we'll let that happen. That's okay. We can slow that chestnut tree down a little bit. You know, in the end, 50 years from now, it'll be the chestnut tree with everything else just barely making it underneath it. But you're going to give up. And the apple tree is going to be old by then. It's going to be at the end of its life. Of course, the rhubarb and the comfrey, who knows where that's going to be in the chives. But you're going to give up these other crops for a crop of chestnuts, which I think is a big win. And yeah, we got an asparagus plant in here too. So alongside our third main crop garden here is an asparagus patch that I planted. I've got a lot of videos on that already. Ooh, I see something really neat. Look at this. Look at those babies. Look at those monster tayberries in there. Look at that. I'll bet those are 2 inches long.
They're too bright red yet. They got to get to be dark red, then they're ready. It's actually a cross between a blackberry and a raspberry. So this is a very monster tayberry plant that I transplanted from the kitchen garden, because these things can really spread. So what I did is I got these poles in the ground, and I'm putting cables across, and it's going to be a place to trellis the tayberry vines, as well as I've got a couple of grapevines growing in here. And then underneath the grapevines is a lineup of tayberries right on the ground there. Jostaberries. Jostaberries in the shade, tayberries in the sun. And here we have a gooseberry patch. There's 3 gooseberry plants on here, and we're going to be getting a crop. Look at the gooseberries. Initially there was some early ripening berries, and it looked like it had a fly larvae or something in it. So I covered them with tansy. Tansy repels flies. You can see here's one I put one on yesterday. It's just starting to wilt. And since I did that, there has been no berries with holes in them. A nice crop. There's a sea berry here. That one came from Mark Shepard. And then I planted one in here that is a special one from Russia, a special female. This one ends up being a male. They exhibited it this year. And I got another Russian female up here. Or Siberian, that's the word. Amber Dawn. So they're just getting started. I was hoping they'd send them to me with branches so that I could do a little grafting, but no, just a single little stem they sent me. You know, I just gotta let it go. So it's got 2 little leaf buds there. They're expensive, so hopefully they make it. So these are the oldest asparagus on the property. I think I planted them in probably around the year 2000. They're actually in a different spot, and I transplanted them here. And they're having to compete with the wild plants, and I don't think that's a problem for asparagus. Last year it actually grew one out of here that was almost as thick as my wrist. But this year they didn't come up as thick. We got some ferns in here. You can see the mice or whatever are trying to dig into the gooseberries. Got hardware cloth here. In the wintertime the mice will eat the bark off the gooseberries. Ask me how I know. And here we have a peach tree growing in that fence. Here's a nectarine tree. That one's a Fantasia, and it actually developed nectarines this year, and then they fell off. And this is all this is hugelkultur, the entire area now. It's in a rectangle. It's mounded up on the edges, and then in the center I just got sticks buried under grade. We got thistles and we got burdock, more asparagus here. But I don't think there's any nectarines hanging on. This would have been a first year it fruited, and then it looked like they all fell off. Now it had leaf curl, and I just let that happen. I've had a peach tree for a long time that finally the mice girdled and killed, but they would do it every year, and I never treated it, and it would just grow brand new leaves. You know, the early leaves would curl up and fall off and be replaced with these brand new leaves. All of these thistles, I'm surprised I don't see any bumblebees or any bees on them now. Well, there's a lot of little things flying around here right now. Great source of pollen, and it's a great source of iron for my compost. So I harvested all of these thistles last year, every one of them. Oh, you can see, look at that. Not gonna let me get it going. Oh, they're flying all over the place. Now that you train your eyes to kind of look for it, then they're everywhere. It's an interesting one there. It's got a green head. There is a ladybug harvesting the aphids. I saw that on one of the thistles. I saw that the ants were farming aphids, and then there were ladybugs eating the aphids right alongside the ants. That was kind of neat. We also have a peach tree up in here. Let's see how well that's doing. This is a Siberian peach tree. That's a McHale. Oh yeah, it's growing. Should probably get it out of that tube for a while.
It's not doing as well as the ones that are planted in the garden though, being nursed in the garden. So I put a couple of them out here in the wildland just to see the wild area. It really started out good, but now it's looking a little ragged. Something's chewing on it. And we'll just go ahead and leave that, put out the tube for a while. The tree is growing here. I don't know, there's a weed tree. Get it out of here. There. I'm gonna help them out a little bit. That's a goji berry in that little fenced in area. And amongst the thistles and the morning glory and the tansy. That's some potatoes I planted in here 3 years ago when it was just basically bare ground. And I've been harvesting potatoes every year since. They're just coming up on their own. Volunteers. The horseradish that I planted with the potatoes. I can fit a 10 by 20 greenhouse right in the center of this, and I just might do that. I think it's a good spot. There's a couple of new cherry trees that I planted in here this year. Didn't take long for the deer to find it. There's a currant bush, oregano, bee balm. One of the nice ones. I put a tomato in here, but just not getting enough sun. I don't know if it's going to grow very well here. This little area here is on the right are the sea berries, and on the left we have a Bartlett pear. Of course, we got these cherries here, Bartlett pear, and there's a. This is an apple tree that actually died to the ground in one of those bad winters. So this is the root stock, and the deer have been just coming in here and hammering it. There's spearmint in there, asparagus, rhubarb, mullein. This is a Siberian pea shrub. That a couple of years it's going to be illegal to plant that in Wisconsin. There's a cherry. Behind the cherry, behind the thistles there are peaches. And we have a hazelnut. Before I fully realized that hazelnuts were when planted, I planted a couple, just scattered them around. We're going to let them grow, see what happens. There's a apple tree in the background there in the tube. In front and around this apple tree I've got edible burdock growing. They're just getting a start. I transplanted them. We've got this monster comfrey plant underneath this apple tree here. This is an old apple tree from the year 2000. There is a hybrid chestnut growing in here, and it is the biggest one on the property. It is really liking to be under the shade of this apple tree. We got some morning glory coming up here. Let's take this thistle out of here. It's going to compete for sunlight. See, I just pulled that thistle off my hand. See that? See, I'm vaccinating myself. Another one here. Oop. That just broke off instead of coming up with roots. So I might have to do it again somewhere down the line. Some grass in here. Here. And so far it's growing well. I mean, first time I noticed, but there's a little spot there, so I don't know. Sometimes this stuff starts and kills the tree. You never know. Matter of fact, why don't I just pinch that off of there and take it away. Put it in my pocket. Just get it out of here. Morning glory. That's what us humans can do. We can kind of help them out just a little bit. And they got a grapevine here growing in the shade. Going to be coming up on this apple tree. So that area here that I just described is on the north side of our access path back here to the forest garden and the Zone 4 area there, the pawpaws and American persimmons behind the forest garden. And this I actually call my food forest because things are random here. You know, we'll see ya. We're trying to keep similar varieties apart. We don't want, say, 2 apple trees together, although there is a circumstance here and there of something like this happening. We're trying to keep everything separated. If there's a pest that attacks an apple tree, that pest or disease won't transfer to the apple tree next door. It'll be a pear tree next door. So that's our idea of a food forest. So here is the corner of the food forest. We're looking at the northeast corner. And this is a continuation here of the hazelnuts. These are precocious hazelnuts here. And there's some Americans that get into the fruit tree area here. And along with these hazelnuts, I've got elephant garlic growing. And some of them actually are going to seed here, right here. And most of them are kind of laying down a little bit. Oop, there goes a rabbit. So we got precocious hazelnuts here. We have an American hazelnuts in here, along with this glorious stand of lupus that all the pollinators love to be in. We have some mint. This is a red Rome apple tree. We're training a grapevine up the apple tree, and there's chives and rhubarb, horseradish. In amongst the hazelnuts here we have chamomile and snapdragons. The chamomile I planted, but the snapdragons, that all came back. We probably seeded some snapdragons years ago, and it just continues to grow. There's a new plant here. I'm not sure what this is. I didn't look it up yet. Look at the seed heads on this thing. It's got a kind of a nice flower that the pollinators like. Kind of weird. I'm not a botanist, so I got to look all this stuff up. I've never trained in it. So let's move this over here a little bit. Oops, there goes my camera thing. Everything I got is getting old, falling apart. So this is the center of the food forest. We've got some rhubarb that I've been harvesting, and I've been selling some of this at the farmer's market. And what's really neat is, because it's under the shade tree that's growing these monster leaves, and the stalks are staying sweeter and juicier than normal. The ones that are out in the sun, they're already, I mean, they're pretty bitter. And these are a lot sweeter. And I got a lineup of currants in here that are doing pretty good. Here's a really large horseradish root. Chamomile. Another rhubarb. I got a grapevine that's going to be growing up this birdhouse post. I've got aronia. So we got aronia and currants, and here's a hazelnut bush. That was the red Rome apple and the hazelnut, and then I've got a apricot, Moore Park apricot. There's a golden delicious. Here's a contender peach. Canadian bounty plums. There's an Antonovka apple, a red pear, sour cherries, another Antonovka apple, and there's stinging nettle in here, more chamomile, more yarrow, and it's all just now starting to really blossom. And it is, I mean, this lupus is just full of very little bitty pollinators. Well, here's my honeybee on catnip. Catnip is blossoming now too. One of my honeybees. And back in the distance we have more apples, more pears. There's an almond tree that's actually growing pretty well. Nectarine, another pear tree. Underneath there is a couple of hazelnuts. There's Siberian pea shrub, more cherry trees. This is just an area of 25 by 35. All of this is in here. At some point it'll be really shady, and you know, things like the rhubarb and the horseradish won't be growing as luxuriously as it is today. But the currants and the gooseberries are all going to be growing well. They grow in the shade. We'll get a crop. Let's take the phone off the hook here and let's walk it in here. Here's the rhubarb in the shade. This stuff is actually red in the center of the stalks. You can see this currant is getting climbed up from the morning glory. I think that one's a red one. This one's a white one, and over here is the black one. Boss Cop, that came from Mikhail Hand there. He sells things. It's Dreamtime Village if you want to buy anything from him. Here's a, look at that. This is a elephant garlic. growing in here, fighting in the shade. And we'll just have to see how much of a bulb it produces. It's chamomile. Here's the lupine. This is the catnip I just saw the honeybee on. Oh, there's a honeybee in the lupus right there. Come on around here. Say hi to the audience. There he is. Or there she is. Ah, perfect. I'm stinging nettle right here. Pear trees always get some stuff on them, but it doesn't kill them. Some type of fungus. My big old pear tree gets that too now. For years I never got that. Now it's getting it. As long as it's not fire blight. There's a cherry tree in here. It's not tall enough yet to get it out of the reach of the deer, so I leave this cage on until that happens. There's a nice stand of goldenrod that's about to burst in bloom. This is a precocious hazelnut. This is one of the first ones I planted. Growing very well. The deer do eat hazelnuts. This is a special one. I don't even remember the name of it now. It's an Italian one. And then they're supposed to have the largest of all nuts. And I didn't think it would live here, but this was actually planted before the two very hard winters. 13, 14, and 14 and 15. And it made it through both winters. So I'm excited about that. More rhubarb. So there's a large area here that seems to be lower than everywhere else. Well, this is a big, large area of chocolate and mint. And the mint helps to discourage the apple maggot fly. Kind of confuses their scent. That's why I planted it here. And after a while, you know, the trees will shade it all out. But that's what we got going. There's a Siberian peach shrub in there. There's currants in there. More hazelnuts in there. Chives. This is an apple tree that died back in one of the hard winters, and now this is the rootstock that's growing. I want to see what kind of apple it is. Here's an Antonovka apple tree. Now I planted a lineup of Antonovkas here. There's like 3 of them here on the south end, 4 of them on the south end here, 5 of them. I have 5 of them along here. And the reason why I've got them on the south end is you can see, you know, they just got long grass here. And you can see how well their trees are doing in the grass. This is what they teach in college. This is what the young kids learn, that you should have them so many feet apart and in a straight line. Well, this is what you get. Okay? Fruit trees compete with the grass, have to compete with the grass, and the grass wins. So here we have no grass and no straight line, and look at the growth. And they planted these trees at least 12 years ago. Look at that. And I planted most of this stuff since 2013. Other than a couple apple trees that were planted in 2000. So 2013, and now it's 2016. 3 years old, and look at this growth. So that tells you what the colleges are teaching you. Blackberry, thornless blackberry, and a grape, and then another blackberry. So that gate there leads to my forest garden, and we're not going to get into that. I already got too long of a video. And I got corridors around the forest garden of mostly bushy plants, bushy berry plants. And this corridor here, this is actually a swale and a swale mound, and the swale mound is actually a hugelkultur. And then that leads back to the Zone 4 pawpaw, persimmons, black walnut patch. That's the path there that goes back to that. And I'm going to quickly get this here. This is a peach tree. This is an Alberta peach. And it's growing next to this black walnut that I pollarded and put an owl box into. And up the black walnut tree, I got riverbank grapes growing. The reason why I wanted to show you this peach tree, because it's growing next to the black walnut. And I don't think it's supposed to. And it actually set some peaches, set some fruit. Now they did have about a dozen peaches on it, and they've been falling off. So I don't know if they're going to make it or not. I hope they do. Hope a couple of them do. I like to plant the seeds down there. So I got three 3 of them that I see. So since the other 9 or 10 of them fell off already, those 3 will probably fall off too. And back here I've did some mulberry grafting. That's a graft right there. This is a stand of primal cane blackberries, which has never did very good. A few berries at the end of the year, but look it, it's mid-July and this one back here actually set. So it could be that they need to, a couple of years, establish a good root system. Then they'll give you berries. One of them made it through the winter, one of the vines, and it's this one right here, and that one actually set fruit already. So if the vine makes it through the winter, like a normal blackberry, it'll have berries the next year. But that cane back here, that's a brand new one. There was nothing there. It had died all the way back to the ground, and that grew and set that fruit mid-July. So we're gonna definitely have fruit this year. Looks like this one's just about to start. So maybe, you know, I've been disappointed with it, but maybe it takes a couple years. I got a cheap deal on American persimmons from eBay, and none of them sprouted. They're actually dead. And I complained, and the person I bought it from actually gave me my money back. One of them I actually broke off and it was green. These are definitely not green. They're dead. This is a bare soil. This was being used by the birds as a dust bath, and I let them do it. And I actually planted some ramps in there. So they died back already, and the bulbs are underneath there, so next year this will be ramps. In here I'm nursing some Korean nut pines. I'm probably going to have to get in here pretty soon and do a little bit of weeding because they don't get a lot of sun. But they're actually growing pretty nice. I think there's 23, 24 of them in here. They're destined for the wildland. Here's a black walnut that came up this year, growing like crazy. I'll transfer that up to the wildland. This fence here that surrounds the forest garden, this is a Frontenac grapevine, and it is loaded. Absolutely loaded. Here's the elderberry. This is Nova. So if Seth Will wants to get up here, he can have some elderberry flowers yet. I actually have 3 elderberry plants here on this border. This is Samdal, and it's really early. You can see it's so early it doesn't get a good fruit set because it's flowering all by itself, and they need pollinators. But then some of them are pretty well covered because they were a late bloom, and they bloomed alongside the Nova, and the Novas are just now setting. Oh, look at all the fruit on this one. Holy cow! That is a lot of fruit. I think we'll be able to satisfy all the bluebirds in the area and get enough for ourselves this year. And then on the end here, and this is for pollinating purposes, I got a wild one, and that one actually is blooming here the latest. So first it was the Samdal, and then it was the Novas, and now it's the wild one. The idea is they will all pollinate each other. The Samdal is just this gloriously big, huge monster thing. Look at that. That's at least 12 feet high. And the wild one is 10, and the Novas are only about 8 feet. So this isn't long enough video. We're not going to get into the forest garden or the zone 4. The access path here is kind of neat coming back in here. I think I'm going to wrap this up. Now, one more thing we'll do, we'll walk along the edge of the hugelkultur with all the thistles, and I'll show you the blackberries and the chestnuts that are planted back here. So I got a little walkway here. The end of these cedar posts are little feet. You can see one here, I got a foot on it. So all the weight is on the feet here, just these little spots here on the ends. These are at least 4 inches thick. And they're 10 feet long. So the idea is you don't want to compact your soil. And when you walk along here, we're not compacting the soil other than where the feet are. These are triple crown blackberries. I got a special deal on eBay. I bought 50 of them. I think they were $1.50 a piece or something. And the best ones I planted back here along the fence, and then the rest went up north. And the ones up north are actually struggling because that's zone 4 up there, and here we're 5B, and we're right on the edge of where the thornless ones can grow. So here's our weakest hybrid chestnut, having to compete with all this stuff and never got up. So it's barely growing. I've got more being nursed, so I might replace it. If it doesn't demonstrate its ability to grow fast, I probably shouldn't have it here. Now here's one that's competing. It's getting up there. And these hybrids, I don't even know the names of them. I got the seeds from Adrian Lee. He's a permaculturalist down in Sheboygan County. And he wasn't sure what each one was either. He just gave me a handful of sprouted chestnuts and said, here, try these out. He wasn't sure what they were. Well, this is a really nice blackberry that's growing. Now, I actually planted these in 2014, and the rabbits ate them to the ground. 2 winters in a row. And now I tubed them all. When they sprouted, I tubed them this spring. Now the rabbits aren't going to be able to chew on them next year, unless the snow gets that high. Then I can put another tube over the top of that. Here's another chestnut. So the chestnut, I'm trying to concentrate them on the north side of the property so that we don't shade out our forest garden, our food forest, 50 years from now. And those chestnuts are really tall. It's got all these nice blackberries here. Some of these blackberries I tip layered on the back fence, so I got them growing closer together. Here's a really nice one. Sprouted a couple of them out of the ground. Again, all this was just bare ground here where the rabbits chewed them right down. So 2 years in a row they've had to endure that, but I think that's actually a good thing. This is a Bartlett pear tree that I grafted our old pear tree scion wood onto, a shoot, and it's growing pretty good. I've had to take this tube off and scrape off all the shoots off the Bartlett trunk. This is a tall tube in an effort to keep the deer away. But this is kind of a corner here. I think they're nervous to be in a corner. So far, they haven't been back here. There's a lot of thistles here too. I don't know if the deer are bothered by thistles or not, but sure does bother me when I walk through it. More blackberries. Here's a real little shoot that came out. I actually tip layered that. Here's a real nice hybrid chestnut. Here's another one that was tip layered. Here's a chestnut that's growing kind of slowly, but it looks very healthy. Here's the other nectarine tree right here. I got a couple peach trees in here. This is the back side or the north side of the hugelkultures. Blackberries. We're going to get a crop of blackberries this year from up by the main crop gardens. Beautiful berries. Didn't have a crop, well, just a very small crop 2 years in a row with those brutal winters. Most of those plants die back in the winters. And these are biennials, so you got to grow the cane the first year, and then it's got to make it through the winter, and then you'll have berries. And again, we're right on the edge of thornless blackberry territory here. You have a brutal winter, and that's it. It doesn't happen. I think this is an almond tree. Oh, I think this is part of that first initial planting too. I forgot about that. So two trees made it through. Now this is a pecan tree. I think this is a pecan. Yeah, I think that's a pecan tree. Growing in this patch of yarrow. Again, this is before I knew hazelnuts were one pollinated, so I got some hazelnuts growing in here. These are bush hazelnuts. This is a peach tree. Here's a cherry tree. I got a number of experiments going on behind the shed there, but this video is long enough already. Coming back out here, coming up to the asparagus patch. This is the gooseberry hugelkultur. Oh, look at those beautiful berries there. Look at that. I always look to see if they're red all the way around. If they're not quite red, they're not that sweet. Oh, look, that one looks pretty red all the way around. Let's try that one. I see it's a little bit green right there, so it'll be a little bit sour yet. Not too bad. It's a little green right there. They get really sweet if you let them get really red. Oh, nah. Alright, good. Look at that. Just everywhere. There's 3 bushes in here. I had 10 when I initially planted them in 2013, and one died, so I had 9. And last year it was really hard to get the berries out of it because it was just, the branches in there were just so thorny. So I transplanted 6 of them out of here, the 6 smallest ones. Left the 3 largest ones, and then the mice actually girdled the center one. You see all the new growth? There was only like 2 branches that made it. And this is one of them here. You can see it's got some berries on it. This actually was a really good producer last year. Sweet berries. I think that's a John's Prairie. And these other ones might be Pixwell. I got it written down somewhere. I gotta check. And so these 2 on the end are just loaded. The one in the middle is the edges. The ones, a couple branches are loaded. And all the rest of the ones that I scattered around, and there's no rhyme or reason where I put anything other than in corners around the main crop gardens. They're not having much of a crop because they were just transplanted this spring. This is our asparagus patch. Planted some tomatoes in it. They're growing. Just enough sunlight through this asparagus. Here's a tomato. It's supposed to grow like 6-7 feet tall. That's why I got it by this post. I'll tie it on this post. This tomato here, I'm not doing that great, but it's growing in the shade. I got a couple tomatoes in the forest garden too, or in the food forest. Let's see what they're doing. Yeah, that one's growing pretty good there. I got another one back here too. Let's see what that's like. Where did I, oh yeah, that's what I remember now. Oh yeah, I can see it. I should have noticed that when I was doing the video back here. Oh, look at the tomatoes in there. Oh, it really likes it here. This is next to a pear tree. And mint. And snapdragons. Oh, nice. Oh, here. Carolina gold, that's what it is. Geez, I was smart enough to leave the tag there this time. There's some nice grapevines growing up into this apple tree. Finally reached it. I think I planted this 2 summers ago. This is the 3rd summer. Finally reaching it. There's a tag in there somewhere. What it is, I can't remember what it is. So, I don't know if I can see the tag anywhere. At some point I'll remember. Or else we just wait to see what the grapes are. And we'll know. Okay. That's enough. This is a garlic here. It looks like there's a little gopher hole in there. That's okay. They're aerating the soil. So I'll give you a quick rant, a comparison rant here. This is what they teach in the colleges. They call it horticulture, or we should more call it agribusiness culture. Because when you do this, they got this certain amount of feet you gotta plant your trees apart. And you do this, well, now you're gonna have to be fertilizing. And because normally people plant the same varieties together, now you're going to have to be doing a lot of treatment for pests and diseases. Because if one tree gets it, it's going to spread through the orchard just like wildfire. There's one tree right next to the other, right? And then this outfit here, this neighbor here, he's got it all in long grass. And that's the worst possible planting you could do in long grass, is fruit trees. Fruit trees have shallow roots. And this grass, it just absorbs all the water. Any rain that happens, and if it's kind of dry out, nothing gets into the soil. Very little gets to the fruit trees. This is what you got. This was planted like 12, 15 years ago. The two pear trees are doing well. So pears are okay. But compared to mine, most of this stuff was planted in 2013. And later. Look at that. So instead of me having to buy fertilizers, all of these plants are contributing to the soil life, contributing carbon and nitrogen and all the major elements and minor elements, concentrating them. They die and they release them through the roots, and the critters eat the leaves and the secretions of all the soil life. It all is fertilizer to these trees. I don't have to do any fertilizing, none. And they're growing like crazy. And because I have all these wild plants in here, it's attracting all the pollinators, and many of these pollinators are predators to the pests that would eat my trees. So I'm having to apply no pesticides or herbicides, none of this. Matter of fact, we want the herbs to grow because of what I just stated. So that's my rant. And I think this is perfect that I got a neighbor that planted it this way. Over the years, we can watch this develop. What's the difference between his trees and mine? And how much fruit is he getting per the same area? He's got 4 trees in the same area that I've got a couple of dozen. Plus all the herbaceous, like the rhubarbs and the horseradish and currants and gooseberries. I'm going to have a monster harvest in this little 25 by 35 foot area, and he's got four barely alive trees. And he's got to pay a guy to come cut the grass every week. That's costing him money. Well, it costs both of us money to set it up, and rightfully it costs me more because I've got more trees planted in here. But his costs are ongoing. My costs have ended, other than picking. And picking fuels itself. So that's enough. I could keep going on, and we'll do more videos in the future. I got these obstacles here so that the path is winding through the food forest. Make you slow down and look at everything. That's it. Hear all the birds, they're all happy. So that's our mid-July update of the permaculture design in my backyard. Now, I designed this and I'm planting this. I'm doing most all the work myself. I've had some help with some of my sons with some of the heavier objects that have to be moved around. Other than that, everything I've done myself. And I'm just taking my time. I started in 2012 is when I learned about permaculture and began doing some things. That's when I started my hugelkultures, the Sepp Hauser sort of thing I was learning. And in 2013 I took a PDC, a permaculture design course, an online one. And permaculture actually was a system of growing food crops and other things. I mean, there's so much in permaculture, it's hard to really describe it all in a couple minutes. So I'll just leave it short by saying food crops naturally. It was designed by 2 Australians, Bill Mollison and David Holmgren. Now, I don't know either of these 2 guys personally, but I took an online course through an Englishman transplanted to Australia. His name is Jeff Lawton. You can find his material at jefflawtononline.com. That's how I learned it in 2013. And then from there I just kept studying. There's a lot to learn. I've read the manual, which was probably the hardest book I've ever read. And I've read a lot of the material that he cited in the manual. And I'm just patterning a lot of this after that manual and after that course. So I think it's grown pretty good. I got a lot of stuff going on wildland, more earthworks and more larger broadacre scale designs up there, which are very interesting. They're developing very well, interestingly. Get that straight. So that's enough. See you later. Thanks for watching.